This is Making the Case. I'm Yodit Tewolde. We begin tonight in Washington, D.C. as lawmakers struggle to pass meaningful voting rights legislation. Debate got underway today in the Senate as elected officials returned to Capitol Hill after facing strong criticism from civil rights leaders to change the filibuster rules in order to pass the stalled legislation. Tomorrow's vote comes despite the fact the bills are expected to fail without the support of two key Senate Democrats. BNC's Ariane Maniz is on Capitol Hill with the latest.
Democrats have tried for months to hold a voting rights debate on the floor, but we have been blocked each time by Republicans.
A showdown debate is underway over voting rights and the filibuster in the U.S. Senate.
Now, many of these same colleagues have spent weeks literally thundering, that the Senate's 60-vote threshold is an offensive tool of obstruction, a Jim Crow relic.
Democrats are attempting to advance a voting rights package that combines the Freedom to Vote Act and the John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act. Although the measure is being heard on the Senate floor, Republicans are still poised to use the filibuster to block a final vote.
The Republicans don't want to have a national debate over their desire to not have black and brown voters turn out in historic numbers all across our country. So they don't want this debate. Well, privately, they're saying it's a big victory for them if black and brown voters get suppressed in state after state all across this country.
Meanwhile, activists are turning up the pressure on Democratic holdout Senators Manchin and Sinema, who support voting reform but remain opposed to changing the filibuster to clear path for election legislation. A group of about 30 protesters calling for the bill's passage were arrested outside the Senate chamber early Tuesday. A vote on the measure is slated for Wednesday. With the odds stacked against Democrats, Senate Majority Leader Schumer is still vowing to forge ahead with the vote, win, lose, or draw.
Members of this chamber were elected to debate and to vote. We're going to vote. We're all going to go on the record. And Republicans will have to choose which side they stand on, protecting democracy or offering their implicit endorsement of Donald Trump's big lie.
In Washington, I'm Ariane Maniz for Making the Case.
Here now on the eve of this consequential vote is Mondale Robinson, founder of the Black Male Voter Project. Mondale, welcome back to the show.
Thanks for having me.
We know the Senate will vote on the bills tomorrow, and we also know it'll fail. So what are your thoughts on the political strategy of forcing the issue of voting rights on the floor? Because at this point, it isn't about legislative strategy.
Honestly, I can't even call this forcing the issue. We are a couple days away from the anniversary of an entire year of this administration, and I feel like they spit in the face of black voters by waiting this long, to get into midterm time where everything is politicized to even talk about or begin talking about voting rights. They gave Manchin way too much time to try to bring along Republicans, when now for him to say that he supports voting rights, both of the bills that are being presented tomorrow, he said he supports both of them, but he doesn't support changing the rules of the filibuster, which is absolutely disgusting to me, because how can you support voting rights and not support the tactics necessary to pass these same voting rights that you're screaming about? I think it's tacky, and it's also a form of white supremacy that they can sit idle for this long when black people delivered everything that we were asked for in 2020.
You know, Chuck Schumer, when we saw that clip where he was calling out Republicans and holding them responsible for the bills not being passed, but it's also something that is expected, right? Republicans have been playing this long game. What they are doing is not surprising. They want to win. So isn't it important to also call out the Democrats? As you said, it's long overdue to now take up the issue of voting rights, and they had a year and some change to handle this situation before today. We knew where the two holdouts stood for a while now. So it's important to also call out their own party. But again, this is politics, right? So they can't do that necessarily.
I think it's weak. I think it's the flaw in politics. It's the transactional nature that black men, black people especially, are tired of when we talk about voting. I think if you consider the fact that, you know, Chuck Schumer's on the floor talking about Republicans are going to have to go on record. This is a Republican Party that supports Donald Trump wholeheartedly. I mean, they still kowtow to the past. And so to act as if they support not giving black people access to the ballot is a surprise to anybody. It's ridiculous and it's childish, especially when Chuck Schumer himself gave Joe Manchin so much power when Joe Manchin was working to water down the John Lewis Voting Rights Act, and saying that he could bring along some Republicans. And when he got his Voting Rights Act in front of Republicans, not a single one of them supported him. So I think it's absolutely ridiculous that we're talking about calling out Republicans. What needs to happen, what should have been happening, was calling out the two Democrats that are holding this process up, which will cost the Democrats, not just the midterm, probably 2024.
So speaking of 2024 and the midterm elections, what do you think this is going to do to the Democrats with the black vote? I mean, not voting isn't an option, but we also are losing faith in the party.
Yeah, I wish I could go along with that idea that not voting is an option. For you and I, we understand that, and that's our position. We vote because we know voting matters. But we saw in Virginia what happens. Black voters, a large swath of black voters are exercising this protest vote, not going and vote for Republicans, but sitting out elections. This is exactly what happened in Virginia because they had a nothing candidate running at the top of the ticket on the back of a nothing administration, meaning we got nothing out of Washington, D.C. in 2021, and Virginia was a result of that. Not only did we lose all of the constitutional elections in that state, we lost seats in what were comfortable black districts in that state, just because black people sat out. So we are not seeing people that say voting is not an option. They're absolutely saying we will not go to the poll and vote for this nothing that we continue to get from a party that we give everything.
Well, unfortunately, but not surprisingly, we can't rely on lawmakers to do the jobs that they were elected to do. So again, it is up to us, their constituents, to do the work on the ground to ensure that our vote counts at the ballot box, especially with midterm elections coming up, as I stated before. So what can people do right now?
I think just because we see a lack of action in our elected officials in Washington, D.C., we should not extrapolate that the entire political system is broke. This country has more than 50,000 elected officials, and overwhelmingly, most of them are poor working class or middle class people. They're not the wealthy folk in Washington, D.C. doing nothing. So I would say continue to pressure those in D.C. that are not doing what they're supposed to do, and show them that the power does not rest with them. The power is in the people and the ability to unelect ineffective elected officials. So I think this election cycle, unelecting people who are not doing what they were put in office to do is a wonderful way to start a revolution about what it means to be an elected official in the United States.
You actually tweeted something about the danger of allowing two people to basically dictate the democracy and the health of democracy in this country. It's on the screen right now. It says Democrats have put themselves in a dangerous position where they're depending on two selfish senators, Senator Joe Manchin and Senator Sinema, and now the entire party looks as if they are unable to deliver on one of the most important issues for black voters, voting rights.
Yeah, I think I think anybody that would argue this has not paid attention to, like I said, the 2021 election cycle. Think about not just Virginia, because Virginia was blatant that the Democrats fouled up there. But look at New Jersey. New Jersey had a popular incumbent Democratic governor who almost lost his race because black people are upset with what the Democrats are not doing for them. You can't promise a party or you can't promise your base voters throughout the election cycle that your first priority will be voting rights, and then get in office and don't do anything on it for an entire year, and think people aren't upset about that. And I think right now, like I said, we don't have, the majority of black voters are no longer baby boomers. So this nice politics or political respectability does not exist with this new generation of voters. My generation, which is X, is pretty small, but 2 generations behind me, millennials and the generation behind them, are large, and they make up the majority of voters in this country right now, and the majority of black voters. And they're not party loyalists. They're not identity politics people, meaning they don't vote for people or personalities, but they do vote for issues that are important to them. And voting rights is an important issue. And to allow 2 senators from very white states to dictate what is and isn't is not what we were promised in the 2020 election cycle.
Well, Mondale, I got less than a minute left, but I do want to ask, I know advocacy and education are incredibly important when it comes to voting. What can we expect from your organization, the Black Male Voter Project, in this regard?
Yeah, I mean, we continue with our work of not showing up like transactional, like parties and their auxiliaries. So our work is year round. We are engaging Black men about issues most important to them and letting people know where each candidate stands on the issues and hoping and knowing brothers will show up in a way that's beneficial to our entire community.
All right, Mondale Robinson, founder of the Black Male Voter Project, thank you so much for your time and work.